Hey, have you ever picked up a prescription from the pharmacy and just wondered, what was the incredible hidden journey this little pill took to get into your hands? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain and tracing the exact regulatory roadmap that turns a promising discovery in a lab into a treatment you can actually trust.
So yeah, how does that happen? It's a question a lot of us have, and honestly, it can feel like some kind of secret. But it's not magic. It's a really carefully mapped out, super high-stakes journey. So let's follow that map together.
You should really think of it like a roadmap with mandatory checkpoints. Every single new drug has to follow this path, and the currency it uses to get past each checkpoint, it's data. Piles and piles of data, all organized into these massive, formal documents that get sent to regulatory authorities.
In this whole complex journey, it really hinges on three major milestones. You can think of them as the ultimate gatekeeper standing between the laboratory and the pharmacy. Let's take a closer look at what they actually are.
All right, so here's the 30,000-foot view. It all kicks off with years, sometimes even a decade, of research in the lab. Then, just to get permission to start testing in humans, there's a huge application. After that, you've got the clinical trials, which, can take years more. And only if all of that is successful, a final, absolutely monumental application is sent in for approval.
Okay, let's dive into that first checkpoint. It's called the IND, and honestly, the best way to think about it is like a learner's permit for a new drug. It's the application where you ask for permission to start testing in people for the very first time.
So what exactly is an investigational new drug application, or IND? Well, essentially, it's this giant binder of evidence that a company presents to regulators, like the FDA here in the US, and in it, they have to make one single crucial argument. Our new medicine is finally ready and, more importantly, safe enough to move out of the lab and into its very first human studies.
And that right there is the core question the entire IND has to answer. Before a single volunteer is ever given the drug, regulators have to be completely convinced that, based on all the research done in the lab, the compound is reasonably safe. Now, that doesn't mean it's risk-free, but it does mean the potential benefits justify starting those first tests in people.
And to prove it's safe, the IND has to contain three key things. First, all the preclinical data. We're talking about all the lab and animal studies. Second, exhaustive details on how it's made, to prove every single dose is pure and consistent. And third, the complete playbook for the first human trials, spelling out exactly how volunteers will be monitored and kept safe. So after years of clinical trials, and only if the data is looking positive, the drug faces its final exam. This is the New Drug Application, or NDA. It's that moment where all the evidence, everything, is put on the table for a final verdict.
The NDA is pretty much what it sounds like. It's the formal application to get a new drug on pharmacy shelves so it can be sold. It's the moment a company finally gets to say, look, we've done the trials, we have all the data, and we believe this medicine is ready for everyone.
And when we say this thing is massive, we are not kidding. An NDA can run over 100,000 pages. It compiles every single scrap of data from trials that involve thousands of patients. And it all boils down to answering one fundamental question. Do the proven benefits of this medicine, clearly, without a doubt, outweigh its known risks? And make no mistake, regulators don't just skim through this. It is a painstaking, methodical review process. First, they just check if it's even complete enough to review. Then, teams of scientists dive deep into the data. They even send inspectors out to the factories where the drug is made and scrutinize every single word on the proposed label. Only after all those boxes are checked does an approval decision finally get made. Okay, but what about a whole different class of medicines, like vaccines or some of the really complex cancer therapies? For those, there's a similar but distinct pathway. It's called a Biologics License Application, or BLA. The difference is actually pretty simple when you break it down. NDAs are for what we think of as traditional drugs, small molecules made through chemical synthesis. Think of a classic aspirin pill. BLAs, on the other hand, well, they're for a whole different world of medicine. And just look at the kinds of treatments we're talking about here. Biologics aren't simple chemicals. They are incredibly complex therapies made from living sources. We're talking about vaccines, those powerful monoclonal antibodies used for cancer, and even revolutionary gene and cell therapies. So the reason they need a whole separate application is really all about the manufacturing. Because biologics are produced using living cells or organisms, the process is just incredibly sensitive and complex.
A BLA puts a ton of extra emphasis on proving that the manufacturing process is consistent, it's controlled, and it can produce a pure, effective product every single time.
So, okay, we've covered the IND, the NDA, and the BLA. But why does this super bureaucratic, multi-year journey actually matter to you and me? What's the point?
This quote really gets to the heart of it. These applications, the IND, the NDA, the BLA, they are the essential bridge. They are the formal, structured process for taking a brilliant idea from a lab and safely turning it into a real-world treatment that can actually help people.
Ultimately, this whole roadmap is a massive safety system. It makes sure that all human research follows strict ethical and scientific rules. It ensures that regulators get all the data, not just the good parts. And most importantly, it means that any medicine you take is supported by a mountain of strong, reliable evidence.
So, the next time you see an approved medicine, just remember, it's not just a product. It's the result of years, sometimes decades, of painstaking collaboration between dedicated scientists, doctors, patients, and the public health authorities who oversee this entire, incredible journey. Which leaves us with a final thought. As science gets more and more complex with things like gene therapies, how will this rigorous but absolutely vital journey need to adapt? And what does that mean for our ability to safely and quickly bring the next generation of life-changing treatments to the people who need them most?